to the competitors, and we very much appreciate your time. Tonight we have 3 guest speakers. We have Steve Orlick, we have Peter Merritt, and we also have Paul Pascoe. So I'm going to hand over the mic to the 3 presenters and get it rolling. Also, I'd like to say hello to everyone at home who couldn't make tonight. We are live streaming this on YouTube. This is the first done before, so we hope they can hear us clearly. So welcome to everyone out there on YouTube. I'll hand you over to Steve Orlick.
Thank you, everybody, and this is from us, the Melbourne, Australian Sailing and Victorian Race Officials. So we are pleased to have you attend here for the annual race management seminar. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for volunteering. It's a tough gig, but we're here for a fantastic purpose out there for all the sailors. So that's all about. Tonight, just to give you an idea what we're going to do, a bit of an agenda for the evening, bit of an open discussion, reason for being here, and it's all about involvement here. I need feedback, heckling, the whole lot coming back. Okay, so if you've got an idea, jump up, let us know about it, and I'll be asking for that too. So we then have Peter Merritt, National Race Officer and Chair of the Australian Sailing Race Official Committee, with an update on the state of the nation, what's happening with all our race officials. Follow then with a presentation by IJ and IRO, Commodore from this great club here at Brighton, Paul Pascoe. And Paul will be talking about Rule 69, coaches and support personnel, and how we intertwine with that and make things stick. And then the last thing we'll be doing is just some various case studies and a couple of scenarios. So we want to sort of keep it going pretty quickly. I don't want to hold you up all night. We'll see how we go, make it as light as we can. But before you get too comfortable, you're sitting there with your great friends, but I'd like to see that everyone stands up and moves, because I'd like to see you break up in, say, groups of 3, if you like, and people you're not normally dealing with. So if you don't mind, just break up in groups of 3, stand up, move around to another table. I know it's hard work, and you think, what's going on here? Come on, you're too comfortable there next to your friends, so come on. Come on, get in the spirit of it. Move it around. Let's go. I'm going to move in. It's no use sitting next to the person you know and love. Come on.
It's always squeezy.
Alright, as soon as we settle down, thank you. As soon as we settle in, so I want you just to discuss with your newfound group of friends. Have a bit of a think about it. When you're ready. When you're ready, I know, well, excited, new friends, it's all good. Why? What? Alright. Over you go. Get over there. Alright. I'd like you to discuss, and I'm going to come back to each of the group, everyone in the group here. It's all about, why are we here? Why are we here? I just want you to talk about it for a minute, and then I'm going to come around and just get a reply, just one sentence of each group, okay? Why are we here? Over to you. Over to you. I'll be asking you guys first. I'll be asking you first. Just remember where you live. Alright, I reckon you've had long enough. Alright, I'm going to wander around and we'll just get some answers. So this group over here. Okay guys, you're up. Why?
Technical updates.
Technical updates?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yep. Update? Right.
Do you want the superficial reason?
Wait,
The superficial reason is we all need reaccreditation.
Right, okay, yeah, I don't know. Over here, okay, over here. Why? What do you come on with?
To run good races and be a good service to the competitors.
Okay, yep. Beautiful. Okay, guys, what are we thinking?
Networking.
Networking. All right, okay. We're on. Okay. Keep it coming. What are we thinking?
Just learning. There's always something.
Learning. Over here.
Mine is swimming in Canada, that's why he's here.
Right, okay. The weather. Sorry about the forecast next few days. Over here.
Very best friend.
Best practice? Good, yeah. Over here.
Oh, you read the answer.
Thank you. All right. Okay, Leslie's going to keep asking those questions. Thank you. Deliver.
Look to investigate the intricacies of case studies that highlight rules that I thought I knew, but then obviously didn't know.
Yeah. All right. There's no wrong answers.
Keep our skills current.
Yeah.
Keep up to date.
I will see her all day.
Because we love sailing. Attempt to understand our legal responsibilities.
Sure.
New experiences and fun.
Others are already given the serious answer, but the unserious answer is the scintillating company.
Right. No one else on this end over here? Broadening knowledge. Exactly right, isn't it? It is. But I suppose the other reason why we're here, I suppose, and I'm not sure anyone answered it, but the first thing we're here for is for the sailors. Over there? Thank you. Yeah. So we're here for the sailors, and everything else that we pick up along the way is a bonus. And yeah, lifting our skills, it's awesome. So we're here because we love volunteering. I don't know about that. I think we enjoy all those other reasons that you've played out. I think helping out, doing the right thing, and learning a lot. And I think too is probably once we go through and we've learned all those skills, we're actually putting them into play. And then once we're doing it here at a very high level, and we're able to deliver something that makes you feel good as well.
Steve,
Yeah.
volunteering is a pastime for retired people.
A pastime for retired people, yes. It is. It is. But I don't see, it's not really a career pathway to earning money.
No, never said that one.
No. But it's places like this. I mean, this is just an awesome place to come. It's a platform for improving our skills. There's no doubt about it. Learning new skills and learning from others. I want to talk about that a little more as well. Apart from catching up with old friends, a few people I think probably think, well, I like going there, catch up with all the mates. So I think that's a great thing to do. I suppose the other thing too is we've got this opportunity of seeing some of the best sailors in the world. And if it's things like we like doing, going sailing, they're all coming to us. And here we are. And we're very, very fortunate to be putting this on at our partner clubs in an awesome venue like here and at Port Phillip. So, good thing for us. And I mentioned before, operating at the highest level. Here we are, at the highest level, just under the Olympics we are. So, everything we do, we aim to raise the bar all the time. And I mentioned before the satisfaction of doing the task correctly. So, and occasionally, it's always good to get some praise. It's nice if someone comes along and says, thanks a lot, you did a great job. It's always great when the sailors come through the finish line, or at the end of the regatta they'll come past the boat, and that's a good feeling. Makes you feel good when you think, well, I think I've done the right thing. We've put on a good show for everybody, and when they go past and they appreciate it, you think, well, I'm appreciated. Well, that makes me feel good, and I'd love to come back again next year. So, what I wanted to do then is, we talked about the bar is set high. How do we get there? What are we doing? So, I want to ask what your current practice is at your own clubs. Is it roster, or is it a full-time position? You're either doing some official duty, either on the water, out doing a rescue boat, on the beach, maybe it's the tower, the radio, or maybe it's the results. So it's it's integral. Everybody is just equally as important to make it all happen. So I'd like you just to think about when you come, once you're talking again in your group very shortly, but when you turn up and it's all about knowing your job, how do you deliver this? How do you deliver it at your clubs? What about the communication that goes on prior? I think we're going to learn a lot from other people sitting around, what they do at their own clubs to make it all happen. So I want to know, is it the same thing that happens every week, or is it something different that we come along to? Do you have a mentoring scenario? What is it? So what's different about your clubs and how you do it? I'd just like you to have a quick chat for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to do the same thing, come around and ask again. Go to it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, another 60 seconds, minute to go. Okay, I reckon we're pretty right. So Leslie's walking around with the mic to get some ideas. What's the question again? Right. So, all right. Look, you've had an opportunity then to discuss it, what you're doing at your clubs and how you make it all work. So, thank you. I'll hear the answers.
Surprise.
Yes, right. What we do at Mornington, I do the start vote each week, have an assistant, and the rest are rostered.
Okay.
And there's a regular crew that do the results and the tower and all that sort of thing.
What, and how do you get, so it's regular people doing it all the time?
Some jobs,
Some jobs, yeah.
on water, it's usually rostered people.
Okay, rostered people. And what about bringing new people in? How does that work for you guys down there?
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. What? Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about this and how we're going to actually get more people involved. But okay, thank you.
When the microphone comes to you, if you'd like to say your name, and then we know who we're speaking to. Thank
That's all
you.
good.
Yeah, I'm John Garner from Royal Geelong. At the moment, we've got a program of several race officers that are stepping up and retraining and training others. Trying to bring in young, because we're nearly all in our 70s.
Wouldn't know.
Thank you. But we're all sort of pulling together to try and help bring some further younger ones into it, and encouraging them to be a part of the race management team.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard.
So how are you going about that? When it encourage them to come in, how do you do that?
Ask Roger.
We're trying to build a team of people that want to participate and focus on race management. It's a little bit difficult at the moment. Most of the people we've got racing are old too, so we've got to try and find some people that are under 70.
Yeah.
I haven't told my club that I'm a race officer because I like to say it all there. I'm really sorry, I'm not telling you which club I'm at because then they'll know. But in terms of race management, I tend to just pop into different clubs these days and just run things a little bit, and that's always challenging given you don't know what you're getting or who's coming.
Yeah.
But our consensus here was really that it is difficult to get lots of people to come down, and you're relying on the same 3 or 4 skilled volunteers all the time.
Yeah.
My solution to that is, and I know lots of clubs are really good at this, is providing free or very cheap training, so people understand their jobs and don't feel frightened or concerned about getting involved.
And it's a tough gig going to another club because you don't know what level they're actually operating at, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Until we actually get into play and think,
Yeah,
I
sometimes
know
you're
everything.
pleasantly surprised. It's great.
It's
And
great.
sometimes it's a bit scary.
Yeah. All right, great.
Yeah, Michael Kent from Port Melbourne. I think the hardest bit is getting people with a sailing background to do work. And getting people who don't have a sailing background is to get them across that. If they're intelligent and fine, it takes a long time, but if they're not, forget it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's really difficult to get them to understand the sailing psyche on the water. so forth.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
They don't come from Saturday.
Yeah.
And one of the consensus was here was looking Victoria to send someone around to each club and do a mentor or an overseer, on a regular basis to whip things up a bit.
Okay. Good.
You've just touched on something of that. Australian Sailing do offer mentoring. Throughout the year we do a roadshow and we come to your clubs and do clusters, and at any stage you would like a presentation on race officials, the Race Official Committee in Victoria are happy to do that at any club in the state.
I was hoping you weren't going to come to me. I come from a yacht club that races Mack trucks, and most of our sailors don't know how to sail but are adamant they're experts. So we have a double issue of, I'm a past commentator with that club too, and I'm not naming it. We have a double issue that we can't grab sailors to work on the water because most of them don't know what they're doing or what a flag means, and they are too old to put in a rescue boat, which is even scarier. So a lot of being paid, which creates another issue, because the volunteers start to, some of them get a bit angst about how all these other people are being funded to go out and help run races, and they see it a bit of them and us and them. So it's interesting. Thanks, Leslie. You'll help with later.
We have great difficulty in getting volunteers, even though we have our roster out at the 1st of October. A lot of them don't turn up, and so we effectively pull people off the water, so they can't sail because we need them on rescue boats and to lay our course. So unfortunately we're a tiny club, and if the three main people on the start boat aren't there, as I'm not there on Sunday, it starts to fall apart. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Glenys. One more and then back to Steve.
Oh, I reckon there's a few more others.
Like Robbie, the previous speaker, but one, I'm also from Sorrento. The race management guys he was referring to that we paid are actually kids from the local schools. We bring them in and give them some boat training, and some of the volunteers of the club do that, and those that show promise, we bring them on as casual employees. And they get out there and they do all the yucky stuff where you get your hands dirty and it's hard work, like lifting marks and doing that sort of thing. And it's really great to have the young kids out there, and all the experienced guys like us can concentrate on the other stuff. The question you meant to ask but didn't is why the clubs here, and from Sorrento's perspective, that was because we were concerned about 10 years ago when we first got involved in this, that we were drinking our own bathwater down there and thought we were doing it pretty well, but needed to test it. And we run big regattas down there because we're a largest club, and you're obligated to do that. So it was good to come up here and immerse ourselves in this to make sure we were actually doing it right and just doing what we thought was right.
Sure, right, yeah.
Hi, Paul Basson, Canberra. Our club runs on a roster system. We have a guy which essentially runs every Sunday race, more or less, on a rotating roster. He probably runs it all the time. People like me that's just new to the organisation, or new to running races, ex-sailor, I prefer to be sailing. But I understand that the organisation needs assistance too, and as I get older, I'm also a soccer player, so I've stopped playing soccer and now a referee. So it's to me, coming to being a race officer is a bit like being a referee, contributing back to the organisation, to the thing that I've loved with passion so long. And I just do what I can when I can. I find myself helping out more with like state titles and things like this, which I'm intending to gain more experience in. Being a race officer or club official down every week isn't what I want to do, because I want to sail my boat as well, but probably once a month is what I do. And I think most other people in the club do the same sort of thing.
Rob Ware. So I come from Sandringham Yacht Club. We're a big club, and we have a well organised race management team. They don't all turn to every week, but there's a great pool of people, and there's been a lot of training done to encourage people to be better at the job, which is what they like to be. No one wants to be a bad race officer. But I have beside me the Vice Commodore of Brighton Seacliff Yacht Club, and you run the junior training program and the races and everything else, and that's the other end of the spectrum. So, and I'm sure that's a great job and very satisfying. Satisfying?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rob. Very good. Anyone else like to comment? If you're at the back. No? No comments? That's okay. Oh, yes, thank you.
Andy Warner. Perhaps I'd like to tell you why I became a race officer. I was a competitor, and I thought it was a really neat idea to do a course to understand what all those flags are about. And as a competitor, I now can second guess what the race officer's about to do, which gives me a competitive edge. You also learn that some finishing officials skew the finishing line towards the pin. Some of them skew it towards the committee boat. If you know who the race officer is, you know you can win yacht races.
Okay, all right. Take that one on board. Good. So, yeah, look, I think having opportunity to get along to different courses, and like Rob mentioned, we're very fortunate to come from a big club, and we're able to run those courses. And the thing is, they're open for everybody to come and get involved in, whether it be laying courses or start boat procedures or whatever. It's worthwhile coming along and mixing up with everybody else and just honing a few skills. I think it's great. But it's one of the things too, our club tried there for a while. I don't think we've tried it for many years now, but they had great success in just advertising in the local paper. And all of a sudden they had all these people, non-sailors. It's a bit different. Some other experiences weren't so good but having that second person, the jockey in the boat, someone who's going to pull the marks, that sort of thing, you don't need to be a world sailor for that. You can get out there as long as you like the water. So that's another opportunity. So anything at all to, I suppose, make it attractive. What does the club do for the volunteers? So you think, well, that's all right, they keep turning up every week, says the club. But the club needs to get behind them as well. And for a couple of beers at the end of the day, it's the cheapest labour. Cheapest labour anyone's ever going to get. And you're happy working all day for a couple of beers upstairs. You really are. So clubs have to get behind their officials and just make that. So there's something else to think about too. Some of the remote clubs, I suppose, the country clubs, they might find it a bit more challenging. We've got a few country members, well, Canberra, we call it country, I suppose. but, of course, me tongue down here. But Albury Wodonga, yeah, well, you guys run big events, but one big event a year, yeah. But the smaller ones who, I was like, I'm just thinking of another club I used to be at, Parkdale down the track there, and we used to have, officer of the day, so we talk about that, rostering everybody in. So you just got average points being there, but you were the race officer. But all of a sudden, oh boy, here we go, you're thrown in the deep end. But there's always someone else around you to make sure you won't go to slip up. There's all plenty of elder persons around the club who love being there and love helping out. So, and they can be the act as the mentors, but it's really important. It's a good thing to do. So, I mentioned there about the cheap labour. We're on to that.
Did you offer them free membership, or how did you get around the technicalities of not being a member or a member of the club?
Yeah, good thought. I suppose you'd offer them free membership, wouldn't you?
I don't know. What did you do?
I don't know exactly what happened there and how it worked, but if they're going to come along and volunteer, maybe you put them into some category, maybe associate category.
associate, yeah.
Then you pay the capitation fee.
Capitation fee, yeah. Oh, and look, that sure presents some problems, guys.
We have a volunteer membership now.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay. And so.
And they're expected to do something each month.
Each month, so they roster on once a month when they come along. Yep. Oh, great. And they're not expected to pay anything, are they?
No.
No. No. Happy they're working. Away we go. So I suppose the next thing is how do we get there? So how do we build those teams? And I want you to have a bit of a think about that and a couple of minutes of chat. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And how are you going to improve things to get more people in to help race management and volunteers? 2 minutes. Go.
Expect a few flags to go up.
Okay, 60 seconds to go. Okay, we're handing the mic across to Pete and walk around.
How do you encourage ideas at your club?
How do we encourage ideas? Generally just a conversation, trying to keep everybody involved. But it's summer's, my name's Diane, I'm from the Summer Shop Club. Try and involve as many people as possible and try and pull in people that don't sail so we can keep our sailors on the water. Just through a friendly atmosphere, I guess.
Yep.
Thank you. Stuck over here.
I think, my name is Mike Ellison. I'm from Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and Akarana Yacht Club. I believe long term that volunteers and so forth are going to have to be paid. If we want young people to keep coming up through grass level and running races, etc., the young people cannot afford it, and the sport will suffer enormously if we don't bring young people in.
Now there's a controversial idea. Thanks, Mike.
Amanda from Summers. So Diane's already gone through a lot of our thing, but it strikes me that we have too few people on our roster, particularly in the tower, and we'd be really stuck if the key good people weren't there.
Let's move on to the only club in Australia that sold out a 200 boat regatta in 5 days and had a waiting list an arm's length long.
One word, communication. What else would you like to say? I'm Terry Caldwell from the Albury Yacht Club. And what else would you like to know?
How do you build a team?
How to build a team. With a lot of hard work, you look around, try and find the right people, and don't just call for volunteers for the top team. Have people you know that are going to be productive, and then people that you know will draw others in. And back to communication again, it's always really important.
Thanks, Terry. Oh, sorry.
Janice Gander from Sandringham. I'm one of the ROs in the tower. I don't do anything on water, and I would say most of our volunteers are partners, non-sailing partners of sailors who we have just socially included, say come up and see what you want. Sometimes we see things have been tight, and I've suggested that the club say, well, you know, you can get part of your member participation points by sending someone from the boat up into the tower, but I was told that they'd only send up people they didn't want on the boat. So we don't want that.
People, human culture in action. What happens down in Tassie?
Nick from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania and Sandy Bay Sailing Club. We've got an interesting little group in our off-the-beach operation, and that having an off-the-beach operation means you have people who were born in a year that starts with a 2. And so you have people who are quite young and helpful. They don't actually have to be paid. Often there's kids who aren't great sailors and really can't keep up with the pace on the water, but love to be involved and still want to be with their mates. So you give them a power boat and give them all the training, and they're the king of the world. They have a lovely time out there. They run rescue boats. They love to be sent ashore to get something in a hurry. So if you do that every now and again, that keeps them entertained, and you buy them a couple of Cokes at the end of the day and feed them chips at lunchtime, and Bob's your uncle. So keep an eye out for those ones if you have off the beach. The other group we have is we run 3 lots of sailing. There's the keelboat, mixed keelboat fleets. There's one design keelboats and off the beach. The one design keelboats seem to be people who sail dragons or sail Etchells and stay keen in that area, but don't maybe not active enough to keep sailing those types of boats. And so they're pretty keen to still be involved in activities that suit those boats. And then the greatest problem is your 75 approaching 80-year-old people who lay marks for you in your keelboat fleets. They don't want to stop doing it, and they get a bit offended when you bring in other people around them. So there's a little bit of sort of careful diplomacy in getting that happening and asking them to train someone for you so that you have a backup. And if you provide the courses and don't charge anything and buy them a drink at the end of the day, and as you say, t-shirt every now and again, and you've got your fleet. So whilst that's not an unusual way of doing things, I think it's pretty normal around the clubs, but it does work.
Thanks, Nick. And from a New South Wales perspective?
Probably a little bit like Nick in terms of the structure of getting our volunteers. I'm David Staley from Middle Harbour Yacht Club. We have a combination of a core group of race officers who share the duties with the major regattas and regular club racing, and a core group of key volunteers, and they're supplemented by a roster of crew members off the boats that need to supply one member. So we've usually got a start boat with 3 experienced people and 2 less experienced people. and some, in-house club training combined with the accredited Australian sailing training. That mix seems to be working.
Thanks, David. And finishing with South Australia.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm the Vice Commodore of Brighton Seacliff. We've got a regular crew of boats that have race officers on them. We're trying to build a culture for the juniors of giving back after they've had years and years and years of free training, mostly by the Sharpie dads, which are mostly their parents. So we get them out coaching the junior fleet, the green fleet, the opties, and helping out the tackers. Some of them are paid, but our regular boat crew are, older guys run by the Brighton Seacliff Fishing Club. They look after the boats and, do all that. And I'm, trying to learn myself so that I can encourage other ladies to come through and do it. And that's why I run the junior racing, so that I got to experience at a low level, and then I fill in on the big boats, when our normal RO's not there.
Thanks, Lisa. And back to Steve.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else want to chip in? No? But that's great. I mean, the thing is, we've got to build teams. I suppose it's all about how we got our roster to be here, and your team, your courses for this event. And it's all about putting good people around you. And you can put the good people around you, and that's, everybody supports everybody. And you don't have somebody there and at this type of event without a great team. And so important. And everything we do, whether it be even at our own clubs, sometimes if you go out there and you'll see somebody, nobody really wants to be there with them because they're a dictator, or they want to try and do everything they possibly can on their own. They don't involve other people. We talked about communication before. Communication is so important, whether it be through the week to make sure you're available for that weekend, getting those people involved, having that discussion in the mornings, the briefing sessions, the debriefing afterwards. Even when you're out on the boat as a race officer, just getting that feedback from everybody. Don't go out there, I can't imagine just making all the decisions. You make the final decision, but involve everybody. Get everybody's opinion. And they all feel equally involved. And that starts at the briefing session in the morning. Get everyone involved, okay? They've all got something to say. Everybody's keen to give and listen to what they've got to say. And that's a great way of building a team. And that's, everyone wants to be part of it. And you encourage them to come back again and again because they feel it's a team. That's the sort of animal we are. We like hunting in packs. So good thing. So communication is keep everybody informed of the big picture. Engagement with all crew members, yep. And ask feedback on decisions too, for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're in a little boat, whatever, everything at all. Just get everyone communicate, get the feedback from your peers. It's a good thing. That mentoring, with some of the clubs are doing the mentoring system, that's brilliant. Just somebody a little older. I know we're doing that with some of our race officials, Rob, aren't we? Rob, he's gone out there. Rob's mentoring a lot of the younger officials coming through. So it's great, just great. So for that, really, I just want to say, look, let's chat over the coming days. It's all good. I'm ready to move on to the next thing. So unless there was anything else anyone would like to add to that, my next part of the chat will be talking about some scenarios. So over to Peter Merritt, race officials. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Steve. I'm Peter Merritt, and amongst other hats, I've been appointed by the Australian Sailing Board to chair the National Racing Rules and Officials Committee, short-term National Officials Committee, together with, and on the committee is a rep from each of the states. So really this session is just designed to provide you with as Steve said, a State of the Nation update on what's happening from an officials perspective, and it's all 4 disciplines, so measurement, umpires, jury, judges and race officers. We cover each of those. So first up, in case you don't know, there is a national committee. In addition to, and there are a number of people from the national committee here at Sale Melbourne. There's also, under the National Officials Committee, a rules specialist group. And I wanted to make you aware of that group. John Stanley from WA chairs that group at this point. And that's a group that's available to answer questions in terms of the racing rules, officiating in any of the disciplines. So if you have a burning issue and you've chatted it around at your club and it's still there's debate about the issue, John's team is available to answer difficult technical questions, or even just questions that you have. So John and his team welcome requests from across Australia from race officials, and I've got personal experience. I had a question in terms of scoring, sent that off to the officials committee, and they produced an excellent result. World Sailing at a world level provides a Q&A service, and here in Australia we have the National Rules Specialist Group that's available to each of you if you would like to ask a question. Here in Victoria, for the Victorian officials, there's the Victorian Race Officials Committee. Couple of things that committee does is that each club in Victoria has a nominated member of that committee who's your contact point, and hopefully each of the clubs know who that is. At the meeting earlier in this week, Rob Ware, the chair of the Victorian Committee, passed the baton on to Darren Eager. So Darren Eager is the new chair of the Victorian Officials Group. From a national perspective, just a couple of our priorities. The first is training officials. And so Australia-wide, the officials team can run courses for you. So if you're in a club or you know of a group of clubs that would benefit from a judge's course, from a race officer course, from an umpire's course, please let us know. And the best way of letting us know is via the club services officer in your state. And each of the states and the members of the National Committee and the state committees are super keen to be able to put on courses for clubs. And that's one of the very best ways of increasing the quality of the services that each of the clubs across Australia is able to deliver. One of the moves that we've been making Australia-wide from the officials' accreditation perspective is to try and focus on competencies as opposed to events. One of the concerns we have is that there's in the past, there's been a focus on how many events you attend. You know, the Sale Melbournes, World Championships, National Championships, to determine the capability that you have to deliver race official service, whether it's race officer, judging, umpiring or measuring. And we feel it should be based on competency, not the number of events, such that we can have way more accredited officials across Australia than the number of national or world events would typically allow for. So we feel here in Australia that world sailing is potentially going down a slightly interesting path when they, for instance, 12 months ago, increased the number of events required for IJ accreditation or re-accreditation. Just basing it on events we feel is not the best direction for our sport, and it should be based on your competency and the ability to deliver the service, not strictly the number of events. To that end, we're about to release an updated judges policy, Australia-wide, that talks about levels 1, 2 and 3 judges. In the past it's been club, state and national. we're moving away from that type of title, and the new policy will talk about competencies and the ability of you to perform the role at the nominated level, and it will remove the number of events that you need to attend or be an official at to be re-accredited. So we aiming to increase the number of qualified judges across Australia. We're also aiming to provide training using online, and we've delivered the first online training, a mark setting course that's now available, and that's designed to increase the skills across Australia for those clubs typically that are remote and can't easily access face-to-face training at a capital city. We're also at a national level, and Australian Sailing, through our support person Glenn Stanaway, is always looking at opportunities for Australian officials to be accredited at the international level. And so if you have a desire to move from what's currently called state to national accreditation and to achieve international accreditation, and Australia certainly delivers above our weight in terms of internationally accredited officials, have a chat to the member of the National Race Officials Committee, have a chat to me, or give Glenn Stanaway a call to register your interest to move up to the international level, and we will do our best to assist you to find the events you need and make the contacts you need to have to achieve that outcome. In conclusion, I'm going to be around for the next 4 days. Members of the committee are around for the next 4 days, and I'd very much welcome your feedback on what you feel should be, what are the burning issues from an officiating perspective. What should my committee be focused on? What would be important to you as race officials and in support of your own objectives, from your own career, from a volunteering perspective, from your club? What do your clubs need? So it's absolutely sensational that we've had such a fantastic rollout to this evening. And so congratulations, in particular, congratulations to those people that have travelled from interstate to be part of this event, to join in the training, the knowledge, and making the networks. Question?
Yeah, Peter, at the beginning of your presentation, you spoke about John, I missed his surname, I'm sorry, the service he provides.
John Stanley.
Okay.
Chairs.
What's the scope of that?
John chairs the subcommittee of the National Officials Committee, and it's called the Rules Specialist Group. So they're very experienced international judges typically, and can provide quite definitive answers and well-reasoned answers to officiating questions, be they measurement, judging, race officiating on water. In particular, from an officiating perspective, they can provide good insights into what the World Sailing Policy and the racing rules answer would be. So please feel free to avail yourselves of the question and answer service that John's subcommittee provides. Please.
You just mentioned the committee. Would you just like to say who the people are, because we know you.
So members of the National Race Officials Committee members, stand up, or people that have been on the committee. So Tracy, we have Tracy from South Australia. We have Nick Hutton from Tasmania. We have Ed Vincent from Northern Territory. We have Rob Ware, is the Victorian rep. So we're doing not too bad this evening from a national committee perspective. Thanks for the question. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Fantastic. Okay, next up, Paul Pascoe. Oh yeah, Paul.
Thank you, Steve. Steve's great at getting everybody involved and audience participation. I'm going to be very boring and just tell you stuff. Yeah, that's good. That's Leslie's son. Very good. All I want to do is just tell you about sort of one bit of the rules. So, and it's about how you deal with problem support people. So if you as a race officer has got a coach or somebody, you know, or I wouldn't say I'll be dad, that would be a little bit too specific, but they're called support person, support person. So we'll talk about support person. So I'm doing it. It's a self-serve, okay? It's okay, all right, I'm good. Right, so prior to 2017, we used to put stuff in the sailing instructions and try and put the frighteners on coaches and support people, but it wasn't really legal and it would never stand up, but we always put it in there. So as of 1st of January 2017, there was this became possible. You could penalise a boat for the actions of a support person. And there are a few little problems with the implementation. So as of 1st of January this year, there are a few tweaks. And so I'll just talk to you about, you know, the rule with the tweaks in it. So basically there's two levels of infringement. You know, there's actions of a support person where a boat's gained an advantage. So do you have a wet regatta for the 2.4s? Yep. Yes? Yeah? Yes? Okay, so if the coach was supposed to pull the 2.4 out and clean the bottom of one of their competitors, one of their support boat, that would be an infringement of the rules, and we could, it would be an advantage to the competitor. So the support person can be penalised, and also every boat that person supports. So if we had a British coach would never do that, would they? No, they wouldn't. Okay. Hypothetically, if a British coach wants to do that, you could then penalise the coach, kick him off the venue, and also every person that coach is supporting. Okay, so that's if there is a competitive advantage. If there isn't a competitive advantage, like coaches speeding in the marina, which of course would never happen, never ever happen. But if they were, you can then there's no competitive advantage, but it's still, you know, you still want to put this, you know, put the frighteners on the coach. So the first offence, you get a warning. You would generally get a warning, or you could sort of kick them off for a day or two. But it's just a support person. If it's a second offence, then you can penalise the support person and again every boat that person supports. So if you're a dad paying for a coach to support your oppies, you're not going to be too happy that your kid loses points because the coach is being a bit of a dick. Can I say that? I just did, okay. Right, so how it actually works in practice. So the most important thing is a change to the rules that says when a support person is protested, every boat they support is party to a protest. So if we protest, you know, Mark's here with his 3 boys back in the days when they were sailing, you know, we would protest Mark, but all of the kids that he was supporting are parties to the protest and would be invited to the protest. Okay? So it's and what, you know, so they are part of the protest, even though they didn't do anything wrong. They are part of the protest, and every person who's all the boats should attend, because you want to find out, even if it's a first offence for speeding in the marina, you know, all the boats should be there, because competitors and paying parents will put the pressure on the coach. So they're the ones that are going to put the pressure on the coach to say, you know, play the game, otherwise I'm not paying you coach fees this month. So what it actually means in the rules, as of the start of this year, it used to be definition of a party was a support person subject to a hearing under rule blah, blah, blah. And the new definition says that a support person subject to a hearing, any boat the person supports, and then a person appointed to present an allegation against the rules. The last bit's not so important, but you can then have our marina manager could be a party to the protest. He's not a competitor, he's not an official, but our marina manager, he's out there, sees somebody protesting, he could be the one presenting the allegation. And how it actually works, and one of the things that I think we're going to have to start doing is a registration, say to each competitor, you know, who is your coach? Who have you got here supporting you? Because you need to be able to provide the link between competitor and coach. So you don't want the coach saying, you know, these 6 kids I'm supporting these 6 kids, you actually need a competitor to do it. It's one thing we probably don't do, but we probably should start doing. So if you're out there in the water, you see a coach doing the wrong thing, it's really just a matter of file protest as normal, but ideally also note any boats that appear to be supported by that coach. So, we'll see out here the Italian coach, the British coach, what have you. We'll have a pretty clear idea who they are. It's a bit harder with the dad rib syndrome, and it's a non-sexist dad rib thing. That's a mum and dad rib. The jury secretary should note on the protest schedule when it says, you are being protested, it should be the support person and list every other boat that they're supporting, so that every boat knows, I'm being protested. They won't know why, but you get them in the protest room and tell them. So the person making the allegation is also part of the protest, and the protest proceeds just as normal. What did you do? What did you say? Who did what? Who saw what? And at the conclusion of the protest, what you're going to end up with, if there was a competitive advantage, the support person may receive a warning or be excluded from the event. It gets a bit tricky if you then exclude the person from the event. Then there's an issue about support, safety, what have you. So we've now got 30 knots out there. If you've chucked 3 coaches off the water, that's 3 less ribs you've got on the water. So you really need to be careful about how you penalise people. So it's the coach that gets kicked off the water, but you could then put another person on their boat to send them out. So you need to think about that from a safety point of view. The boat scores, so this is if there's a competitive advantage, boat scores may be penalised up to a DSQ in one race. If it's a non-competitive advantage, first offence, penalise the support person, give them a slap on the wrist. Second offence, penalise the support person, and boat scores, and again, all of the boats, 10 boats. So somebody was saying recently that they went somewhere, went up to the coach and said, who are you supporting? And they said, all of the US team. So you could penalise all of the US team because of the actions of that coach. Not a clever thing for a coach to say. And so recommendations, 2 things. For a hearing against a support person, invite all the associated competitors into the hearing, especially if there's a possibility of a penalty. These sort of things, whether they're guilty or not. It's not a lot of disputing facts. In the protest decision, this is really important. This is more for the jurors. Put in there, if you're warning somebody, competitor sale number XXX is warned that if support person commits a further breach, that penalty may be imposed on the competitor's results. So that it's very clear that you've been warned, and that if your coach does it a second time, you're going to be in trouble. And that's about it. So hopefully that helps you go. The main thing, if you're out in the water, you see a coach misbehaving, just normal sort of thing about same as if a competitor hit the pin mark. Record the incident, but the other thing, try and find out who they are supporting. Okay, any questions?
Well, one of the you mentioned that the support person could be excluded from the event or given a warning. Are they the only 2 options for penalising them, or could you chuck them off the course for a day?
Chuck them off the course for the day is usually the first thing. And there's a couple of us who were in the Kiel jury a couple of months ago, and that's what we did. We hit the coach. There was a local, buddy, Bunny's not here, is he? No. There was a coach that got suspended first, and he sat on shore, and we put somebody else, one of his mates, went out on the boat to support the kids. So he had a day to catch up with his emails. Just being in the wrong place in the course, I think. It wasn't a competitive advantage thing, but we gave him a day off.
Inside the starting area, inside the 5 minutes.
Yes, that sort of stuff, normal sort of stuff that coaches get pinged for. Any other questions? Right, well, no.
Paul, do you post the decision on the board?
Yeah, it's just the same as any other protest. And actually, it's fantastic advertising, marketing, whatever you want. Every coach knew about it within no time flat. Okay, thanks very much. Over to Steve.
Thank you, Paul. That was great. Really good. Really good. Okay, I'm just going to move on then to our last segment. Really, it's a couple of scenarios and then maybe a couple of case studies there to have a look at. There was one of the things was Mark, you commented the other day in regards to an incident where an estuary and Black Flag. Would you like to explain that?
Chris, without notice, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it was a recent experience we had in...
Just need you to stand over the other side of these markers. So you live stream.
Okay.
I think we're up to about 53 people listening.
Do something with the air, Mark.
We're not trending globally then. What a surprise. A dry subject. Okay, so this was a question mark that I had really for jury. We had a participant at the Actuals Worlds up in Moreton Bay, and we had some fairly severe Black Flag and UFD requirements within the sailing instructions, and I happen to have a copy here with me. So a race committee vessel stationed near Mark 1 may display the bow number of boats that have violated Rule 30.3 or Rule 30.4. Boats identified under this instruction shall promptly leave the race course and not interfere with boats still racing. Then the next sailing instruction gives the race committee the ability to notify OCS, UFD and BFD boats by bow number or sail number by radio on VHF channel, approximately 1 minute after the starting signal. Failure of equipment, failure to hear, etc. are not grounds for redress. All fairly normal stuff. So this guy was clearly pinged as, I can't remember if it was BFD or UFD, frankly, BFD, and he was clearly identified. He got the VHF signal and notification that he was over, but did not leave the racecourse. He then continued up to Mark 1, and our Mark 1 man here's over here as well, and got the whiteboard out and put his number on it and stared him in the eye as he went round the mark. Still wouldn't leave the racecourse. Okay, so he gets back, and then he is determining whether or not he's going to seek redress from the race committee because another boat at the start line pushed him across the line.
Can we stop there?
Yeah.
And maybe in your groups have a bit of a chat about it. And before we come to the finale, and tell us what happened. That's what was delivered. The result.
So the question is, what should this guy have done? What was his appropriate course of action given the sailing instruction that was there? And what do you think he should have done to either have exonerated himself or whatever?
2 minutes.
Could be very bad.
1 minute. We're going to get 4 answers, and Pete's going to bring the microphone around. Thanks, Pete.
Okay, who's feeling super confident? Hands up. Got the answer? Whoa, here we go.
Gone for all money, pushed across the line, big deal, he shouldn't have been there. Oh, sorry, Peter Austin Sorrento. Yeah, gone for all money. Being pushed across the line is irrelevant, he shouldn't have put himself in that position. The other question I'd like to come back to later on is, do we allow black flag boats to continue racing, or do we pull them off the course? And there's a couple of schools of thought about that, but we should probably pick that one up later in any other business if we may.
Thank you. Let's add that question to the questions without notice, so we need to save time. Should the race committees do something about black flag BFD boats, or indeed UFD boats, presumably? We've got another volunteer over here.
Yep, Warren from the Woolbar. I was also the mark boat for that race. Have no idea why he was pushed over or how, but as an ex-actual sailor, I can say strongly that I've had a boat wood chopping my stern, and that's a boat that sits on the second row and his bow's just hitting my stern. Every time he does it, no matter what you do with your sails and rudder, you're going to go forward at least half a metre. You cannot stop that situation from occurring. You do not control boats behind you. You are pushed over the line without any control. Now, I don't know if that's a scenario, but if it was a scenario, he must return and start the race correctly. If he did not come back across the line and start the race correctly, then he could not sail the course. Therefore, he cannot have a result.
Thank you very much. One other volunteer. Oh, here we go.
So we have a question from online, from our live stream. What time does the orange flag actually need to be displayed before the start?
Thank you. That's fantastic that our online audience is asking questions. Can we add that to the, Steve's already put it on the to be advised board. Okay, let's go to the jury. What's their view?
I'd love to give you an answer, but I'm going to defer to the chairman of the jury right now.
Nice one, Teresa. So there's a recent case, and it's case number 140, which addresses this issue. And the boat that is pushed over the line under either a UFD or a BFD start must restart correctly. So they have to turn around and go back across the line and from the non-course side of the course restart the race, and then they may be entitled to redress. If they don't, they get nothing. To the gentleman in front of me, with the boat that wood chops you, for the life of me, I don't know why you don't protest. He's a keep clear boat, and if you don't do anything about it, he will keep doing it. Thanks, Mike. Okay, back to Steve.
Well, Steve,
thank you.
On that though, what you just told, on that ruling, every competitor is now told that I was in imminent danger of being hit or cleaned up by a 50-footer, therefore I went over the line, and then there's an argument about whether they were or they weren't. How do you stop the guy? We joked about a member of our club a moment ago, and he's going to, every week it's going to be, I was in fear of my life, so I broke the start line, and then it's an argument about, he may go back, and then he's going to go for redress anyway, saying the bloke,
you learn something. I learn something every day.
So black flag now is becoming irrelevant because you just turn around and say the bloke behind me was going to clean me up. I had the safety of my crew in my mind, and so I pushed over the line early. And then I went back and restarted, and now I want redress because this guy failed to show, and he was not the right way home.
Did you protest that, mate?
Well, you would now. What I'm saying is you now would.
Well, if you don't, you're lost.
But now I'm saying with the black flags up, what you've just taught me is the black flags up. Yeah. You protest the bloke. I think I'm over it. I'm protesting you. You push me over.
It's hypothetical, I know. But and the simple answer from the jury's point of view is, first of all, you've got to protest, and I'm serious there. But then we ask each of the parties to the protest to put $50 in an envelope. We ask all the competitors to put the same amount of money in, and then we judge it on its merits. I didn't get a laugh. Jesus, that's terrible. The answer to that question is that first of all you've got a protest, and then the jury will decide on the evidence that's presented at the hearing as to whether your claim that you were pushed over early or that you just sailed over early.
So, but I could put a scenario at the start of the Sydney to Hobart, and if you've got ragamuffin coming down to you at 8 knots, and you're in a 42-foot boat, and you're on the front line because they've decided you, I don't know, should bar or something, and you sort of go, tonnage has got right away here because death is, in your mind, dominant. You can go protest. I mean, we saw last year that they didn't really care, they kept on going, but it just seems to me the black flag suddenly has been somewhat tarnished in the treatment by the competitor, because there is an out with 30 seconds to go. If they think they're over, protest the boat behind.
Well, hear what you're saying, Robbie. And what I didn't know, and Mike hit it before, if they are over, they must come back to the pre-start side of the line and then start.
What's your obligation to the rule is you retire? That just makes it flat fees.
The rule says retire.
Well,
it makes no better than a fee.
I think we've mixed up a number of things. I think the question in the beginning was if you were pushed over the line by a boat hitting you from astern and pushing you over the line, what should you do about it? The simple answer is you should protest that boat, and secondly, you should return to start properly, because if you're over at the start, you have not started. All right? It's as simple as that. So you've got to go back and start properly, and then protest the other boat, and then you may be, if you can prove your case, then you may be exonerated from breaking the black flag start. So there are range of other situations, but that's the simple answer to the question that was raised. Yes, Lottie?
Well, only in the case of raised before the Yacht, was he pushed over by being hit, or was he just in the wrong position?
The Yacht just pushed over.
He was just pushed up.
What does push mean in this? He was just pushed.
Push. So that's not physically.
Well, there doesn't have to be contact. I think, Chairman, does there have to be contact?
The rule just says that bloke has to be breaking a rule of part 2.
Okay.
If the boat is simply just keeping clear of a boat to leeward of him and crosses the line, and he's being forced over by that, he's still to keep clear boat and has broken the rule and won't get exonerated. It has to be caused by a boat breaking the rule of part 2, and it's up to the protest committee or jury to exonerate that boat, and that's the only way you can get out of it.
Thanks, Bill. Yep.
Thanks, Bill. That was Bill Bell.
Very good.
Thank you. Right, I write a reply coming your way.
What happened, Mark?
Well, what happened was this guy hung around in the race course. Sorry.
It's just gone up. We've got 64 now, my friend.
Maybe I should stay here. So, this guy hung around in the race course. He was a bit of a pain. There was some view as to whether or not even Rule 69 should be introduced, because he was just getting in the way of other boats. He'd been told on numerous occasions to get off the race course, and that's why I identified the specific clause within the sailing instructions that made it crystal clear. He had to leave the race course. There was no option in this particular case for him to have recrossed the line and restarted properly, which may well be the right advice for a normal black flagger in this situation, with sailing instructions that don't have this specific clause included in it. He wasn't one of the top end of the fleet, as you can probably imagine. I think he finished the regatta 91st out of 94 or something along those lines. But discussing that with my little group down here, the view was that he should have lodged his protest and put his protest flag up immediately. He should have left the race course immediately when requested to do so, and he should have pursued that protest and, if necessary, sought redress from the jury and the race committee for not being able to have completed the race. Rob?
Agree entirely, and on top of all of that is potentially in breach of Rule 2 for sportsmanship and not in deliberately breaking a rule when the rule says he is to retire and he doesn't do so, and furthermore may be subject to a Rule 69 hearing, which would be a protest brought by the protest committee against the person rather than the vote, and we all know what Rule 69 involves.
So Rob, before you go, the orange attention flag. When does it go up?
It has to go up when the sailing instructions say so.
So, what's the point of asking a jury member a race official question? Race officer question.
We're not the race committee as the jury, but we sit behind the line and we know more about race management than any of the race officers. I give up.
Thanks, mate. Very good. Moving on to the next one, we're still with Etchells this time. And this time will be Ross, if you don't mind coming up and just giving us a bit of a spiel about what happened in regards to abandonments.
Well, this is not the first time I've done this little trick in abandoning a race, but all of us race officers have got to be aware of the rules that we can actually abandon a race. And one is it's unfair to all the competitors. Now, up in the Etchells, we had a scenario, I think it was race number 8, that I abandoned. But before I abandoned it, a little bit of the scenario was, beautiful day to start off with. They all sailed up to Mark 1. And the boat that was coming first had a nice little lead. And then all of a sudden, down the next leg from Mark 1 back, it was a windward leeward race, coming back down. The wind did some funny things. And Woz was up the top end calling some information that the work breeze was here. And I'm sitting down at well, actually I wasn't sitting down at the bottom at the time. And probably what I did wrong is that I took the start boat because we were going to do so it was an uphill weather finish. So the owner of the start boat thought, well, it takes a fair while to get the anchor up. We'll get off the pick early and make our way up the top. So Mark was down the bottom, controlling around the gate area. And the breeze absolutely just crapped out to a point that some boats were going sideways with the tide, considering we had about a 3-knot tide running. Some boats had 2 or 3 knots with a kite up going one way, other boats had a kite up going an opposite way, and the boat that went around the top mark first was all of a sudden 50th at the leeward mark that I didn't know at the time. And Kevin's sitting up at the top end, and I had all the good people around. And when you're running a world titles, that's what you need to do, is make sure you've got experience around the racetrack so that the information you got is you can rely on. So what we decided to do is that we got up there and said, well, the breeze just may hold in, let's do a shortened course. So I said, well, we'll do a shortened course. But then we had 9 boats had finished, but only 5 boats had finished when we decided the shortened course. But by the time we got a couple of the extra flag up, so 5 boats had gone through, then another 4 had gone through, so 9 boats had gone through a finish line. But why that was happening is that the bottom end of the fleet was absolutely going, they were sideways, they were couldn't track at all to weather because of the tide was pulling, it might be a Sereno where you can see the tide, or maybe sailing around French Island or somewhere and you've got to put your pick down. But we're running a world title for 94 boats, and I thought throwing a pick down wasn't the solution in fair sailing. So Kevin and I had a bit of a quick chat over the phone, it might have been, and I decided that I'm going to abandon this race. So what I've done, I've done a shortened course, and then I've abandoned a race. And that's almost unheard of. But I went by my judgment, and that's what we did. So I guess I had 80-something fairly happy competitors, and 9 or 10 competitors that weren't quite so happy. So I spent another 2 hours in the jury. But Philip, from the jury chairman...
Hang on, sorry, stop there.
So your challenge, you're the chair of the jury. Did the race committee do the right thing? Oh, no, sorry, in your teams again. Did they do the right thing? And under what rule did they do the right thing?
Can I provide some more background information for the help of these people?
You can, if you're quick.
Okay, I'll be really quick.
Just a bit of background. One of the things which Ross omitted there in the description is that after the leading boats went through the gate, which is where I was positioned, there was a 150-degree wind shift to start. And that is the situation where we had boats running down from Mark 1 to Mark 2. I was sitting down at the gate. We were photographing boats running from Mark 2 back up to Mark 1 as boats were running down the other way with kites against each other. Ross is absolutely right. The guy who went round Mark 1 first ended up going around Mark 2 in about 50th position. This is in a fleet where the speed differences are negligible from one end of the fleet to the other. The guy who went through the gate first rounded the top mark in about 25th or 26th position. Again, a significant amount. So most of the crap that had already happened on that downwind leg. And the point of that, Pete, is that mark roundings are actually very valuable things. And some of the guys on the boat say, what are we doing mark roundings for? We're going to take finishes, aren't we? Mark roundings were actually quite useful because I was a witness for Ross in this protest, in this request for redress, and we were able to provide mark roundings to show that there was some really weird shit going on out on this racecourse, and it was thanks to the people at the top and the people at the bottom who studiously took those mark roundings and the photographs that we were able to take out on course.
Thanks, Mark. That does provide some additional information, but for a moment there it sounded like you were an advocate for the race committee in front of our jury. So back in your teams, request for redress denied or upheld?
1 minute to go.
It is. So this is the decision
Okay. Steve, which group should I go to first? So the question is, upheld the request for redress or deny, and why? Which team are we going to ask?
Who's confident?
You've already had to go. Nick's had to go. This team.
I don't have the book in front of me, but when Graham, what's the Yacht Club? When the rule about abandoning a race, it says once you've got finishes, it's not advisable to abandon it unless it's not fair to all the competitors. I think it's something wording to that effect. So normally you wouldn't abandon it unless you got a really good reason once you got boats finished. And as someone else suggested, you could wait till everybody got through with the time limit's another factor. Was that going to be in it? But I think when you read the rule, there isn't out there for Ross.
So what's your jury decision?
I'd stick by Ross.
Yeah. So I take it that's denied.
I maintain the race should have been abandoned for the reason that the new course wasn't sailed in the configuration that it was supposed to be. So the beat became a run and the run was a beat and all that sort of stuff. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have a dissenting view from any of the teams?
The last line of that 32.1, which says the race committee shall not abandon the race without considering the consequences for all boats in the race or series. Ross, was that question put to you? Did you consider the consequences for all boats?
Absolutely, Terry.
That's very good, because I know that I know that everyone thinks of consequences and only think of fairness as meaning I was disadvantaged. They don't think of fairness means I've gained an advantage, and fairness works both ways.
Good question, Terry.
Thanks, Terry. What about this team over here? Denied or upheld?
I've cheated, I've read the result, but I think that had you not abandoned the race and the race had finished, you would have had a massive request for redress, and the jury would have considered the interest of all competitors and still had to scrub the race.
And let's just check in, did that jury get it right from this jury?
As long as the race officer considered the consequences to the other boats, whether he made a good or bad decision, he's compliant with the rules, so the request is denied.
Thanks, Bill. And what actually was the decision, Ross?
You all are correct because the request was denied. And just because of the 9 boats that finished, 5 of them actually asked for redress, and there was 2 boats that were in the vicinity of finishing but didn't finish, so that was 7 people that were in the jury room, and some thought that was certainly their best race for the regatta. And they were going to go along with it as well, so why not get on the bandwagon? If it's a win-win, it was a no loss situation for some of those people. So anyway, it was denied, and it was an interesting scenario, and 2 hours, but I'm sure that everyone around the boat park at the actual Worlds, 94 boats, and that's a lot of people, all had a bit of a chat about my decision. Anyway, thank you very much.
There's another one in regards to abandonment, which I'll just run past you and we'll get your feedback on that one. It's running a kiting nationals in Townsville a couple of months ago, and we had tricky sort of weather, but there was half the fleet finished the race. And our races, I mean, they are only 12 to 14 minutes. They're not, it's all fierce, go hard or go home. Half the fleet finished, and then the wind was like, the course just went, so you could just see it was just coming across the course, and I'm talking something within 60 seconds, there was no wind. And the kites just fell out of the sky. Now these are all foiling kites, and they're not inflatable kites, they're just they're air ram kites, so when they sit in the water for any more than a minute, they just fill. And that's the end of it. So, what would you have done? I'll give you a couple of minutes.
So can I ask one question?
Please.
Did the sailing instructions say anything about this situation?
Not at all.
So the question is, a competitor that finished asked for redress because the race was So the question, thank you. The question is, what should the race officer have done when the wind dropped out? Abandon the race, or score that race and leave it stand?
How long had the race been going when the wind dropped out?
No, the race was only really.
It's a 14-minute race and at 13.
Yeah, it was only probably, it was in around about that 9 or 10 minutes. So.
Half the fleet finished, did you say?
Half the fleet finished.
This is a very simple scenario. What would you do as a race officer? Abandon or let the race stand? Go for it. Okay. First question. Do we have anyone in the room that's been a race officer for a kite race?
Besides Steve Orley.
Besides, we've got two. Okay, first off, let's go to the people that have got some experience. Abandon or let the race stand?
David Staley, Middle Harbour Yacht Club. I don't know that it actually makes any difference whether it's kites or any other class, really. It comes down to the same questions of fairness, and I think it does become more difficult once you get half the boats across. You know, you obviously you can get to the finish in this race. The problem is for the half of the fleet that doesn't finish, that's not particularly fair, because there would have been some boats ahead of others, and yet they're all scored the same DNF, and it actually creates an advantage for those that did finish. It's a difficult decision, but I think it'd be also handy to know what's the target time.
What did you do? What would you do?
I would not abandon.
Okay, so we have one not abandoned.
No, I wouldn't abandon them. When you're saying they get an advantage, they got an advantage because they sail faster.
That's a very sensible thought.
And I didn't explain it properly.
How are we going over here? Abandoned or stand?
Stand, mostly, I think. Yeah, stand.
Bill Bell.
You could abandon possibly if there are safety issues with the boats that are, or the kites that are in the water.
Okay, that's another angle. Over here, what would we do? Let it stand. Okay, Mark, I think you put your hand up as done a kite race.
I had, but that wasn't where our answer came from, because I've got a juror and a race officer here as part of this group, and we had a middle road. We said we'd score it and let the half that didn't finish all seek redress from the jury.
That's a race officer. So, what did you do, and what was the outcome?
Look, I let the race stand, and I looked at it and thought, well, if they weren't so slow, they would have finished. It was like they were saying you could see the wind on the water, and they were just going and sailing into holes, and I'm going, why? Don't go there, and then they'd be sailing into holes, and I'm going, wow, you could have kept on this side of the course. Why didn't you do that? But this all happened within 60 seconds. It was like amazing. So I let the race stand.
The majority of DNFs would have got their best point anyway, if you thought about only one or two of those. So, you know, the way they didn't finish all got the same points.
Were there any requests for redress?
Yeah, 2100
Well, the answer's no. And the question came to me about, and I go with what Graham was saying, and I'd probably, in regards to, well, I've done all these finishes, you know, I'm going to let the race stand. But Tracy had her hand up. But yeah, I let the race stand, and away we went. But that was my call. I spoke to the sailors, and I said, I'm sorry, but you know, I've got half the fleet finishing. I'll probably have a different take on it after being here and learning stuff tonight. So I'll maybe have another take on it. I'll look at it again differently. But you know, at this stage, no, I'm happy with the decision. But it's good to know. Now, Tracy, you want to say something?
I just think it's important to remember that this happened on the last leg of the course, and by that time of the race, the positions are practically cemented anyway.
Oh, they would. Yes.
So you're not really doing any disservice to the back of the fleet. They're still going to be there.
And plenty of drops. Yeah.
So, what would you do then in a handicap event when the boats are handicapped? So they're not the same speed. So half the fleet finish, and the slow boats who are entitled to finish a certain amount of time behind the front boats don't.
It's not about you, Robbie.
No, yeah. That's why you sold your boat. What are you talking about? I've still got it.
You'll never do that
No. Look, anything that's handicapped is really tricky. It's like
I think that's time limit. If it's handicapped, it's time limit.
it's a time limit on it. I think, you'd be pretty game to do it, wouldn't you?
Still a time limit on a non-handicapped.
Yeah. Defer to those that know better.
I don't, that's why I asked the question.
Follow the rule. Is it
Follow
fair?
the rule.
Or are you looking at it, have you considered the fairness to everyone? Why don't you have 2 slow boats to China out the back? Oh well, time beings. If you've got half a fleet of Columbias,
Yep.
you might want to keep them happy. Or S80s or something like that.
Start them early.
Well, the
Pursuit race.
time's getting on. What I want to do, thank you very much, and happy to chat about all this stuff when the bar is open. But I wanted to talk about, very briefly, it was different cases, and I won't go into it at all, but I don't know, who finds case studies really interesting? I'll tell you what I found on New Bedfella. It is absolutely fantastic. I love them, because there's so much to learn. It's incredible. So, anyway, some of this stuff, when we talk about, I'll just go to the scenarios, and again, this one really tells you about your finish lines. Just make sure, if ever we race officers and finish lines, that they're coming from the last mark, and the finish line's this way and that way. It could be either way. Even though it says in the sailing instructions one thing, they can come through the other way and still be finishing. So when they take it to the room. So interesting. There was that one. This is all a bedtime reading for everyone, I think. It was. I had it written down. Oh no, there it is. It's all good. Yeah. And 106, that was a good one. 106. Let's just go back down here.
Oh, 106.
Wait. No. Yeah. Unbelievable. Here we go. Let's go. There's lots of them. This one. Wow, this happened to me, and wow, what a learning curve. And this happened at a regatta earlier in the year, and I learned something about pulling the string and how you can pull the string when you're on a course. And it doesn't matter, you can go around gates or whatever you can do. Let me pull that off. But as long as, if you've got some gates going through, and you're going to come around this way, well, it doesn't matter if I'm going round and round like this, and I'm off again. I think, wow, that's something for me, I learnt that. But for the same for the finish line, coming down and around, and then coming back through a finish. When we shortened the course, and this was the bottom gate, and we put the boat tied up next to the mark, and tied the boat mark next to it, so there is no gap, right? Good base management practice, there is no gap, no one thinks they have to come racing through. But we've signalled it the whole bit, and the boats are all coming through and finishing. And this other boat came around, and we were at the start. We had a start line back down here in front of these gates. But as the breeze was dropping off, I didn't want to send it to the top mark again. So it came down, it was reaching down, missed the mark, the pin totally, or what was now the pin, because now it's the finish line. Went round the outside, round behind our start boat,
and then they're wandering back up this way, so just keep an eye on. They've come back up, and they've come back through the line. And I said, record it. But we'll go and have a chat. Well, I didn't want to give them a finish. I just thought, they didn't finish. No, it's the wrong thing. But they did the right thing and took me to the room. And which was great, because initially the jury said, oh, I think there's a case study on this. And sure enough, there was. And it doesn't matter how many extra marks that you travel around, as long as you finish from the direction of the last mark. You come through there and they've got to finish. Fantastic. So it doesn't matter how many other marks or whatever you do and how you go around it. And I always thought that pull the string thing was so important. Anyway, it's the finish. It's the finish. So, the next one. 127, what's that one? I'm not going to hold you up here much longer. Let's just keep going. Because I wanted to break into groups and just talk about all these things, but... That's true. 127. This was one on the finish. Again, this one's interesting just on the finish. What's it doing here? Anyway. Sorry about that. We'll fix it. So, this one as we're going through, Steve, if that's the finish line.
There's gone down to 6 people now, but you've got to put the mic up so they can hear it.
Oh, okay. Through the finishing line here, so they've come through the finish, all right. They've travelled through the finish, they've cleared the line, all good, but they're still travelling through the line, but they're drifting. It's pretty slow, they're drifting through, but they've cleared the line. We've given them a finish, they've cleared the line, all good. But as they continue on, they've hit the mark. So they've actually hit the mark. Where the way it reads, so I just wanted to talk about there's no mark instant good choice. So if she had gone through and thought, oh beauty, now I'll tack off and I'm away, but because she's actually come through and it's on that same course and touches the mark, even though it's cleared the line, yeah, it has to go back and exonerate itself. So I thought, well, that's a good one. I'm positioning the finish line, just that one, 129, just briefly. There it is there, okay. So this one, course side of the line, okay. The race management have set up that line. It was actually a rounding mark, and that's where B2's going. But now they've set up, they want to shorten the course. So they've set up the line, the boat, on the other side of the line. Okay. And they're allowed to do that in the definition, they can go and do that. It's created so much confusion. The poor sailor thought, well, I'll go round and I'll come back and finish. Because that's what I've got to do. I've got to come round it the same one. But sure enough, he was taken to the room and asking for redress. He took to the room, asked for redress, but it was denied. Admittedly though, it does say down here, it was poor race management practice that they set up this scenario. So, if the boat should be on the other side, okay, obviously. That's what it should be on the other side. So it's, yeah, setting them up for a failure, or for grief in the room, and no time to get to the bar, which is exactly where we're going now. Thank you everybody for your participation. It's been really, really good, and appreciate it. And sorry. Peter Osborne, you had a question. You wanted to bring up something. Sorry, Pete, an idea.
Well, you've got 3 things here to talk about. Are we going to talk about?
No, we've already done the orange detention flag.
Okay. Well, the last one was around a race officers forum to have these sort of discussions, but online. There is one for the racing rules. Obviously, I've never read it, but a friend of mine has. But I think I would like to see one created with these sort of people and others that are watching online to have these sort of discussions, but in an online forum. And I'm going to take an action along with a couple of others to kick it off. And just to jump online, have your say, and achieve this sort of thing, but online. You don't have to come to Brighton to do it.
Yeah, okay. Oh, good thought. Good thought. Other than that, over to Leslie.
I'll make it very brief. If we could put our hands together for the all our presenters that have come up tonight. Just a little bit of heads up. I've got a captured audience here, so we're going to push Sal Melbourne 2020. I'm not quite sure what you've heard, but in 2019 and 2020, Victoria is hosting many regattas around the Bay. We're very fortunate to be holding the national championships, where a lot of the classes are coming to Victoria, and then followed by that we're also hosting Worlds, and that will be last qualifiers for a lot of the teams wanting to go to Tokyo in 2020. So if you are wanting to volunteer and be a part of Sal Melbourne next year, Sal Melbourne in 2020, we would love to see you. There will be no Sal Melbourne in 2019. It is moving to a new date in January, and the dates will be the dates for that will be the 17th to the 21st, and we hope to be back here at Brighton. And it will only be Olympic classes. The Australian Youth Championships will be hosting the Sal Melbourne down at Sorrento. Sorrento has the Youth Championships at that time slot. In terms of other stuff, the bedtime reading is on the World Sailing website. Just put in the keywords and you can have your heart content and read all the case studies. If not, I will also try to get a copy of it, and under the Sal Melbourne website, I will pop it under the volunteer tab. So just give me a couple of days. I'm a little bit busy at the moment, but in the next couple of days, we'll put the nighttime reading up on the website so it's easy to find in case you have problems trying to find it on the website. As a couple of people in the room have said, if you're looking for courses or any guidance about race fishing, please contact your nearest regional office. The club services are happy to assist you and guide you in the right area. There are committees that can help you and guide you and come to your club and do some mentoring with your volunteers. On that note, I think that's about it. But again, thank you very much for coming tonight. I believe the bar's still open downstairs, so if you'd like a refreshment, please help yourself. Thank you.
Well,